All right, hopefully we're live. Unfortunately, my headset broke, so I'm using my old iPhone headset. Yeah, checking the audio. The other seems to be borderline fine. We'll go with it. I don't have anything better, unfortunately. Pretty much. Okay. Anyway, so today we're gonna watch this guy. His name is Mahesh. He is a Khan Academy teacher. So let's go into it. Let me start from the beginning.
Anyone can build a website if you use Squarespace, the sponsor of this video. For a long time, I had a big misunderstanding about Schrödinger's cat. What Schrödinger's cat is? Well, it's a thought experiment that Erwin Schrödinger, along with Einstein, came up with to express how unhappy they were with quantum mechanics. But what exactly is a thought experiment? Well, you trap a cat in a box with a radioactive atom, which if it decays, it triggers a poison, killing the cat. Don't worry, it's just a thought experiment. Now, if we close the lid so that nobody can see what's inside the box, the question is, what is the state of the cat right now? Now,
Well, this thought experiment is nonsensical. I mean, what do you mean nobody can see? The cat can see. So I don't know what you mean by nobody can see. The question is it dark? How dark is it inside the box? But let's just ignore. Most of this video is not going to be about Schrodinger's cat, and so let's continue listening.
here's what our classical thinking says, okay? Radioactivity is completely random, which means there's a 50% chance that atom is decayed or not.
So I don't know what radioactivity is mechanically, so I don't have an opinion on this matter yet.
It's either one of them, right? And as a result, right now, there's a 50% chance that the cat is either dead or not. It's one of them, right? But that's not what quantum mechanics says.
I mean, if you had 100 boxes, then 50 cats would be alive and 50 cats would be dead.
Here's what I thought was going on. I thought that according to quantum mechanics, as long as you don't open the box, as long as nobody sees what's inside the box, that atom is neither decayed nor not decayed. It's kind of both at the same.
That doesn't make any sense. If it's not sensible, then it's not scientific. So it's unscientific. So I wouldn't. It's completely meaningless. If it's unscientific, it's meaningless. Stop saying that.
Same time. And therefore, that cat is neither dead nor alive. It's kind of both.
It's not. If you have 100 boxes with 100 cats, and assuming this is correct, right? You wouldn't say this about the flipping of a coin. If you had a coin being flipped inside this box, let's say there was a person, let's say it's a closed room, right? And you can have a person inside flipping a coin, and based on the flip, the cat would die or not. So you wouldn't say that that person is superpositioned or any nonsense like that. You would say, well, in 50% of the rooms of these dark or whatever rooms, in 50% of them, the guy in there flipped, let's say, head, and head means kill the cat. That's it. Let me just charge the phone here. So this nonsense of superposition is nonsensical. I don't understand what you mean by superposition. I cannot imagine superposition, so it's nonsense by definition. If I cannot make any sense of it, then it is by definition nonsense.
At the same time, I thought this was the meaning of the word quantum superposition, kind of like nature has not yet made a decision, but it's only when you open the box, one of them becomes reality. Now, this sounds pretty mind boggling, right? But I had.
No, it's just nonsense.
so many questions about this. Like, first of all, what does it mean to say that the cat is both dead and alive at the
If it doesn't mean anything, then it's unscientific, then just don't say it.
same time? And secondly, why does reality change based on whether you're looking at it or not? How does nature know? And thirdly,
Yeah, it's completely nonsensical.
how do we know what's happening inside the box when no one's looking at inside of it? Like, how do we know?
What if you are inside the box? Would you say anything is different? If you were flipping the coin, would you say anything is different? Would you say you are inside the box in a superposition? I don't know. I mean, it's complete nonsense. So just stop talking about it.
Oh, how can we even comment about it? We are not looking inside of it. I didn't
Why does he laugh so much and smile so much? I don't get it. It's like this is what's so funny? I don't understand why he's so happy. Always so happy.
get any satisfactory answer for a long time until I read Feynman lectures.
Yeah. What do you call it? Spoiler alert. Nonsense. He did not get it. He doesn't say anything wise. I watched it until the end. Nothing wise. It's just the same. He doesn't get it. It's all a lie. If you don't want to watch this video, don't watch it. I'll give you my interpretation and let's continue. So he's lying. It's a cult. He is, everything about this guy is cult behavior.
Just by going through the first chapter of his volume 3, I realized that it's wrong to say that that cat is both dead and alive at the same time. That's not what quantum superposition is. It's much more profound. And
No, everything you're going to say is exactly that. It's nonsense. I listened until the end. You said nothing different than what you're saying now, than what everyone is saying.
so the goal of this video is not only to get a deeper understanding of what quantum superposition is, but also to rediscover all of these ideas step by step ourselves so that we don't have to take anybody's word for it. So if you're ready for this, let's begin. So Feynman, where do we start? Feynman says, if you want to rediscover things yourself, Mahesh, then the best place is to look at an experiment and try to construct scientific models all by yourself. There are a ton of experiments we can look at, but the one that Feynman loves the most is the electron double slit experiment.
That's actually very impressive. That's my go-to experiment. That's the most telling experiment. I think it's the simplest experiment. You can basically figure out all of quantum mechanics basically just from this experiment.
Now, the moment
If you're able to understand this experiment, you'll understand a lot about this universe.
he says this, I'm like, Feynman, I'm going to stop you right there. I already know the electron double slit experiment. It's pretty famous in our times now. So I tell him that, hey, look, you take an electron gun and you shoot one electron at a time through the two slits. What we would expect is a
I don't like it when they use animations. They should use an actual experiment, the actual setup. They've never shown, I've never seen in my entire life a setup for the electron double slit experiment in my entire life. And I've searched and searched and searched and searched, and I always again search and again search and again search. Not a single reproduction of this experiment. All they show is animations, 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 animations. So I am going to assume that this experiment was conducted, was reproduced. I don't have much of a choice. They talk about it so much. I'm just going to assume it's as they say. Unfortunately, I don't have access to a lab, so I cannot reproduce it. Unfortunately.
pattern somewhat like this, right? Where you get two smears right behind the two slits.
Let's listen to this again.
Gun, and you shoot one.
Okay, I'm not going to discuss what an electron gun is. I have a vague idea, but we'll just assume that they're able to fire a single electron at a time. That's a given.
Times now. So I tell him that, hey, look, you take an electron gun and you shoot one electron at a time through the two slits. What we would expect is a pattern somewhat like this, right? Where you get two smears right behind the two slits. But that's not what we get. Instead, we get an interference pattern. And so we now wonder what's going on. This helps us understand that electrons don't just behave like particles, they kind of behave like probability waves, which passes through both the slits and then.
I wouldn't say it behaves like a probability wave. It behaves in a very specific way, in a very specific way. When they say it behaves like a probability wave, that's a nonsensical statement. I don't know what that means. That's nonsense. So it has a very specific behavior that I can imagine very clearly, very mechanically. In my mind right now, it's very mechanical what's going on. So I'll tell you very quickly. We've been through this. I've made many videos at this point about it. So I'll tell you how it behaves. So when you fire an electron, so a single electron, if you're not interacting with it, it's actually a wave. It's actually a three-dimensional sphere that expands. That's what an electron is. It expands simultaneously in all directions. Pretty much. That's a wave. It's a wave of energy, of electron energy. It's not an electric interference, it's an electron interference. An electric interference is a different type of wave. This is an electron wave. An electron as a wave. What is it waving through? Like everything else, it's waving through the ether. So it's waving. It's a wave. It goes in all directions. It also goes through these two slits as a wave. And as a wave that goes through two slits, it interferes with itself. That's the nature of waves. It's waving. Oops, sorry. It's exactly, there it is. This is exactly what it looks like. It's actually very straightforward. Until it hits a detector, detectors. Again, I've never seen in my entire life, this has, it says a lot. I've never seen in my entire life a setup where they actually show this detector. Never. And I've searched, I've spent, years by now searching for, just show me what this looks like. How difficult can it be? I mean, no, not a single, nowhere can you find anything like this. All right, whatever. We'll assume it's true. Anyway, so this is basically what it looks like. Not exactly, because it's actually a three-dimensional wave. It's a sphere. At this point, it's still a sphere, and if you had bigger detectors, you would see that it's a sphere. But I don't think they don't contend. They don't have a contention. They don't say anything against what I'm saying. This is, I think it's pretty straightforward. Maybe at this point it is, because of the slits, it has been reshaped. Maybe if we would use two small holes instead of two slits, you'd get a different shape for the wave. It doesn't matter. It's not critical. So we see, if this is the interference pattern that we detect, then yeah, these two waves make sense. Okay, so at this point, the single electron that we manage to fire at this point is actually two waves interfering with each other, and they're about to recreate this complete interference pattern, which theoretically can go on to positive infinity, negative infinity, positive z, negative z. It really should spread all over the universe. There's no reason why it should stop. It will only stop where it is being stopped, where it is being interacted with. Anyway, but this wave, if it were a water wave, we would expect to see the complete interference pattern. Let me just make sure my audio is still okay. Yeah, the audio is terrible. Let me just make sure. Let me tap my mic. Let me see if I am talking to the right mic. Let me see if I got the tapping. There's no tapping. Let me extract the laptop. Nothing to do with the mic. Yeah, I think we're talking to the wrong mic. Let me see if I can push it. Yeah. No, it didn't speak. There it is, the jack. Yeah. Got the wrong mic. Let me see now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, the signal is a little cleaner. Terrible. I should have checked it in the beginning. Anyway, let's continue. All right. So we're about to. So if this were a water wave, we would expect, the entire interference pattern to show up for any wave. But with water waves, we don't have this single electron. We never initiate a water wave with a single anything. We create a wave. We don't create a particle. With quantum physics, we create a single object, like a single electron. Wait, let me turn off the air conditioning. All right, so then what happens? The next thing that happens, this is the big surprise. The big surprise is that at this point, right, we only fired a single electron. So we don't expect now to find many electrons hitting our detectors, because that would be a violation of conservation of mass, conservation of energy, conservation of electricity, of electric density. This wouldn't make any sense, because our universe seems to not create matter out of thin air nor destroy it. So therefore, because we fired a single electron, this wave, when it is detected, it can only be detected as one particle. Otherwise, we would get a violation, let's say, violation of conservation of energy. Okay, so we cannot, if this universe is to respect the law of conservation of energy, then only a single electron should show up on the detectors. Okay, but now we have a little bit of a problem, because this detector could be very far and very big. It could be the size of even beyond the visible universe. No one limits the size of this detector. So if if there is a wave or two waves about to impact the detectors, how does the wave know to reduce itself back to its original particle amount of energy or mass at a single location? How does it know to do that? Especially if this could be very big, and maybe half of it could be inside a black hole, the other half in another black hole. I mean, the other and let's say another half, or one third is beyond the cosmic horizon. So how would that work? How do these places cannot communicate by any means, but all these places need to communicate instantaneously in order to decide where to collapse the wave back into a particle. And this now begins to sound like Schrödinger's wave equation, where the probability wave collapses. So I don't use that terminology, but I don't disagree with the experiments that were conducted and apparently confirmed this interpretation. So there is an equation that predicts accurately the probability that the electron will materialize exactly here, or exactly here, or exactly. We can calculate the probability where the electron can collapse to, from a wave to a particle. How does the universe do this with instantaneous communication? It's not even instantaneous communication. It's the only explanation is that I can think of is the universe rolls a die, casts a die, and decides exactly where this wave will collapse to. It's like somebody has to do it. There has to be a mechanism in the universe that collapses every wave into a particle, because it cannot happen in two places, because we want to respect conservation laws. So that's the part I don't understand. I don't understand the mechanism that the universe has in order to do this. Now, this happens all the time, simply all the time. I mean, this is the nature of our universe. So I don't know how that works, but that's it. But I would say it is a very mechanical explanation, and it fits perfectly with everything we know. I'm not saying anything against anything we know. I'm not denying any knowledge we have that we all agree on. I'm just disagreeing with everyone's interpretation. That's it. So it's very simple. It's very straightforward. I don't know why everyone does not understand what I understand. I don't know. He almost gets it right. Let's listen to how he interprets this thing, because he says, I misunderstood Schrödinger's cat for years. I finally get it. I have no idea what he's talking about. Let's listen.
And that electrons don't just behave like particles, they kind of behave like probability waves, which passes through both the
No, they just behave like waves. They don't behave like probability waves. Because I don't know what that would even entail. I don't know what a probability wave is. I've never seen one. You've never seen one. So stop saying things you don't understand. There is no probability wave. The probability is, there is no, I don't even think there is a probability wave. We simply have a mathematical equation that describes, apparently accurately, it actually should not be that difficult to write an equation that simply explains this, right? With retrospect, with looking back, says, okay, I need to write an equation that predicts this behavior, so that I can ask it, what is the probability of the electron showing up here? Now we know what the number is. All we need is an equation that will give the same answer. So we just need an equation to fit the data. We know the data. Let's continue.
slits, and then the wave interferes with itself, and then when it finally reaches the screen, they kind of behave like probability waves, which
Okay, I don't know why they all say this. It's literally nonsense. I'm not judging it like I'm not judging it pejoratively. I'm judging it scientifically. You're saying something that makes no sense. Therefore, it is nonsensical. So it's unscientific. It's not mechanical. It's nonsense. Telling me that there is a unicorn flying above your head right now is more scientific than what you're saying. Let me check the message. 1 second. 1 second. Very good. Okay, we're in good shape. Okay. Let's listen again. This is very important because I explain it very simply. I don't have any problem explaining this story, except for I do agree with Einstein that he said, how does this work? Does God cast dice? Because that's the best explanation that I have. That's the most mechanical explanation to how a wave reduces into a single, collapses into a single location, that is weird. That is weird. And the discussion between Bohr, I think, and Einstein, or Born, I don't know, was, so Bohr said, don't tell God what to do. No, Einstein is correct. We don't tell God what to do, but we need, Einstein had the correct intuition. You need a more mechanical explanation for the collapse of this wave into a particle. Notice I don't say the collapse of the wave function. I don't even think it's a wave function. I don't think Schrödinger, I saw in Science Asylum, he said it's not a wave equation, it's a heat equation. So why do they call it the collapse of the wave equation? I don't know why they say that. Everything about what they're saying is incorrect on top of incorrect. I don't know how to deal with it, with them. My explanation is very simple, very straightforward, very mechanical, until I get to the very end. I don't know how it collapses in just one place without violating conservation laws. I honestly, I don't. That's bizarre. I have not yet figured out.
Just behave like particles. They kind of behave like probability and interference pattern. And so we now wonder what's going on. This helps us understand that electrons don't just behave like particles.
So electrons actually never behave like particles. Nothing ever, sorry. So nothing is actually ever a particle. And that's my intuition from the way I understand gravity. From my understanding of gravitational ether, that ether flows and creates, and the flow drags, and that is gravity. That actually has to be at Earth's surface at about 11,000 meters per second. At that speed, my intuition is there are no particles. There cannot be particles. Instead, everything is a wave. Nothing ever switches from being a wave. Everything is always a wave. However, sometimes these waves, when they are detected or when they interact with anything else, because they cannot violate conservation laws, they have to collapse to exactly one place. If they started as one thing, then like one electron, they cannot collapse into two electrons. That would be, then the universe might as well completely blow up at that point. So in order to have a stable universe, it's really tying the horse in front of the carriage. It's not in order to have a stable universe. Our universe seems to be stable in order, in our logic, for this universe, for the explanation to make sense. Without the universe blowing up in our explanation, we need an electron that we fire to end up being detected as a single electron. We cannot have that change into two electrons or into zero electrons. It has to stay one. We fired one. It really needs to end up as one. Unfortunately, I've never conducted this experiment. I've never seen raw data. I don't know how it actually behaves. It might actually, we might be firing one and getting nothing. We might be firing one and getting two or three, or who knows. I don't know. I'm just going to assume that we fire one, we get one. Notice that, of course, some of them, like sometimes they expect us to fire an electron and for nothing to hit the detector because it's somewhere else. It's off the detector. But we don't, there's really not, it's like they're keeping it a secret. I don't know what exactly their issue is. Why hasn't anyone, of all the scientific channels, notice most scientific channels are theoretical. They sit at home and they talk like me, unfortunately. Anyway, I wish more actual, what do you call them? Not theoretical, experimentalist. More experimental physicists would make videos and show us more experiments. Anyway, like reproduce this experiment, like take an hour, take two, and slowly, show us this case and that case. Just show. Don't tell. Don't explain anything. Just show. We have enough people to explain it. Anyway, okay, let's listen again.
They kind of behave like probability waves.
No, you're showing a wave. Why are you calling this a probability wave? Why is he doing this? This is cult behavior. He's just repeating what he heard. He's not authentic in any way. Just a cult, just religion. This is religious. This is religious talk. Very unfortunate. This guy is so smart and studies this stuff so much, and then he ends up saying absolute nonsense. Very sad.
Which passes through both the slits.
A probability wave passes through both slits, yeah, and he's showing an actual wave. Yeah, okay.
And then the wave interferes with
So he said wave. Wow, didn't you say it's a probability wave before?
itself, and then when it finally reaches the screen, the kind of wave collapses. And
what do you mean it kind of wave collapses? It collapses. This is a collapse. It has to collapse, and it's interesting why no one explains why it has to collapse exactly at one point. No one ever said that. Only I'm saying that. I don't think anyone has ever studied this. And no one has ever mentioned that otherwise it would violate conservation laws. I'm the only person I've ever heard, and I've heard so many people discuss this experiment in quantum physics. It's just but anyway, okay, whatever. He's not discussing it. I don't know why. Anyway, so it's collapsing. Let's check the audio. Not discussing it. I don't know why. Anyway, so it's collapsing. Let's check the audio. Yeah, the audio is okay. All right. Very nice. Very nice. Let's continue listening.
And that's where you get the particle. That's where you get the electron.
That's where you seem to get it. I would say the electron never existed, never will exist. It's always was, always will be a wave, except for when you interact with it. So maybe when you fired it, you interacted with it somehow. That's when you notice it as a particle for an instant. Maybe for a literal instant, it's a particle. But certainly when it moves, it has to be a wave.
And that's basically what's going on over here, right? Feynman, right? And Feynman says, Mahesh, the only thing that's interfering over here is your superficial half knowledge. It's fooling you into thinking that you understand.
This is cultish behavior. Very sad.
Quantum mechanics. Please, for the love of God, keep all your preconceived notions aside, at least for the next few minutes.
What kind of nonsense is this? How can you have any discussion without preconceived notions? Wait, who is with us? Oh, Hamburger, how's your throat? Hey, what's up?
It's better than it was, but it was really miserable yesterday, and the body aches and stuff are still really bad. That's the worst part. It's just the body aches. It hurts a lot to just exist.
So is it COVID?
It's either that or it's mono. I haven't checked my throat yet to see if I have the white spots for mono. I can check right now, actually. I'm gonna use my flashlight and my cell phone and the what?
What?
Oh, I kind of do.
So it's mono?
Hey.
What?
So I checked, and there's some lightness on the way back. That's kind of what it feels like. Is it hurts on the back? It's like everything feels like there was some sort of vascular like dilation or something, so I just have like a really dry, like empty tube like as a throat. You know what I mean? Like it's very uncomfortable, but it doesn't hurt. And like the coughs I'm having are like these dry coughs, and they're mostly when I'm trying to sleep, which makes it suck for like the other person in my bed and also scares my dog. So I just like slept on the couch last night because I couldn't stop getting up. And most of it was because I was in so much pain. I'm just taking like 4 Tylenol and 4 Advil every 4 hours, like just to cope with it because it hurts so bad. Like it woke me up out of a dead sleep last night, and then like
Oh,
the night before it was also really bad. So I just ended up like crawling to my living room and like
wow.
taking handfuls of medication and then passing back out. And it's just so miserable.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it sucks. And like my boyfriend said he got sick too. He's not like sick hardly at all. And I'm really glad because that would be terrible. But like I'm really sick. And then his friend gave me shit about it and was like, "You've got to ask yourself why you're so sick." And I'm just like, "You fucking retard. It's because I had cancer." Like, I already know. Like, don't be a dick about it. Like, I can't help it. But like, they're the types of people who, if you tell them like your medical history, they view it as like, I don't know, like something you did wrong. Like, it's like telling them that like I had like a previous medical condition is like telling them I failed at something or something. So I was just like, you know what? Never mind. And then I just like went home because I was like, I'm already sick. I don't need to have my spirits brought down by having people bitch at me. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Definitely.
And I said something to my boyfriend about it, and I was like, that was rude. And like, he's like, that was rude. And I'm like, yeah, that was actually really rude. Like, you shouldn't talk to people like that. What the fuck? And also, he told me maybe it was because I was smoking too much and it wasn't good for me. And I'm just like, what the fuck is your problem with it? Then why are you like smoking around me? And also, don't come to my house and smoke then.
Yeah.
Like, like that's just
Mm-hmm.
inconsiderate. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't ask you to do that, and I'm not doing that. You guys are the only 2 people doing that. Not just that, but like, um, fuck, I kind of lost my train of thought. Sorry, this stuff
About
has me
this,
feeling like foggy.
yeah, it's a smoking. Listen, I need to get back. I'm recording a response video to this cult member.
Oh shit, I love cults. I miss Vegans Against Cults because I used to actually put a lot of thought into that.
Yeah, this is a physics cult. This is the quantum mechanics cult.
Oh my god, that's probably wild, dude. I didn't know there was one of those.
Yeah, yeah, it's the mainstream cult. The mainstream is a cult. Anyway, let me get
Do you
back.
want me to go like
I can't
join
hear
it so I
you.
can be an insider?
What? What are you
Do
saying?
you want me to go join so I can be like your insider?
No, no. I mean, it's like you have to have a PhD probably to enter this cult.
I'm gonna have
So
to start now. That's gonna take a while.
yeah, definitely. All right, listen. Let me finish up, and I'll call you after.
Yeah.
All right. Take care. Feel better. All right. Let's continue. Let's continue this.
Minutes and think about what I have to say with a fresh mind, because I'm going to show
That's impossible. There's no such thing as a fresh mind. That's nonsense.
you a perspective that you probably never thought of before.
No, no. He's just gonna repeat what everybody is saying on YouTube.
And I'm like, all right, fine, I'll play along. And I did get to see a perspective on the double slit experiment that I had never thought of before. So
No, you didn't. You're lying. It's the same nonsense as you started with.
again, We're going to take our electron gun, shoot one at a time through the double slit, and wait for the pattern to generate. And eventually, the pattern that we get looks like an interference pattern that we get when you send waves through it. So now Feynman asks Mahesh, the question over here is, which slit did the electron?
And he talks about Feynman as if Feynman was this god. It's not a good idea to elevate people to such heights. Like, just bring them back to normal size. These were normal guys. They could have made mistakes. When you talk about them like this, it's like they are God and they cannot make mistakes. It's not healthy.
Electrons go through. Now I'm like in the back of my chest. So now Feynman asks Mahesh, the question over here is, which slit did the electrons go through? Now I'm like in the back of my head, I already know the answer to this. A single electron actually goes through both.
No, it's not a single electron. This is where you're wrong. When you think about an electron as a particle, that's where you're starting to get everything wrong. There was never an electron to begin with. It was always a wave. It's always a wave, certainly when it's moving. When it stops, when it's interacting, when it's detected, then yes, instantaneously it collapses into a single location in the universe. But then if it's still around, if it's still moving, if it ever will move, it will move as a wave.
Both the slits and then sort of interfere.
No, you're see, he's using his hands like two particles. No, it's a wave, it then becomes two waves, and then it becomes an interference pattern of two waves.
Years with itself, that's the only way to get that pattern. But Feynman has asked me to keep my preconceived notions aside, so I'm not going to talk about that. So I'm like, okay, Feynman, how do we answer this question? Feynman says, well, let's go through some options. Maybe the first option is all the electrons went through slit 1.
And that wouldn't make any sense. That would be a violation of symmetry. There's no reason all the electrons have to go through one of the slits more than the other. So just from symmetrical logic, that should be the wrong answer.
Now I know that that's wrong, right? But Feynman says, okay, but how do you test it? How do you test whether this option is right or wrong? Here's how you do it, he says. You close slit 2 and redo the experiment and think about what pattern we would.
If you close, then you're changing the experiment. So it's going to be a different experiment.
Would get. Now, if the pattern we got is the same as the pattern we originally got with the double slit, then that option might be right. If we don't get the same pattern, then that option would be wrong. So Feynman asks, Mahesh, if I close one of those slits, what pattern would you expect? Well, if I close one of those slits, the pattern we get would look somewhat like this. We get a lot of electrons right behind the slit 1 only. And clearly, that's not the pattern that we got in the double slit. So from this, we can say that, hey, all the electrons did not go through slit 1.
But there should be, because it is a wave when it goes through a slit, it should spread more than when a particle goes through a slit. You should be able to calculate it. Like, statistically speaking, you should be able to distinguish the results of a wave going through one slit and particles flowing through a single slit. There should be it should look different. And if it doesn't look different, then make it look different. Make sure that, make the slit thicker and thicker so that only particles that are moving straight forward survive. Whereas if it's a wave, it's still going to spread out. And I predict it will spread out. Let me check messages, nothing. Okay. But all these experiments, I don't think anyone has ever done any of these experiments. And if they have, they don't discuss, there's so many more experiments to be done, but they don't redo this experiment. They don't play. I would sell people a home kit for the double slit electron experiment. For children to play around with this experiment. My intuition is people will come up with excellent explanations.
So this is how we're gonna answer all our questions experimentally. Okay. All right. So the next option is maybe all electrons went through slit 2. Now, how do we check?
Right. So so I would make the slit thicker, meaning in the forward direction, I would make it more like a hallway, like a thin hallway, so that only if it's particles, we'd expect all of them to be very much right in front of the hallway and much less spreading around. But if it's a wave, then I would still expect a wave to spread out more. So, but all right, whatever. That's just me.
That? Well, the same way.
I'm thinking about this very mechanically, very mechanistically. I'm just curious why they don't conduct so many, like, this is the foundation of quantum mechanics. Why not conduct more and more experiments around this?
Now you close slit 1 and see what pattern we would have gotten. And the pattern that we would have gotten would look like this. We would get a patch right behind the slit 2 if this was the case. But again, our pattern is not that. We get an interference pattern. So clearly they're not the same, which means the electrons did not go through slit 2. All the electrons did not go through slit 2. Okay, what other options are there? Well, maybe we would say some electrons went through slit 1 and others went through slit 2. Again, how do we experimentally check for this? Well, if this was the case, we would have gotten a combination of the previous two, because we know what pattern we get when electrons go to slit 1. We know what pattern we get when the electrons go to slit 2. So if some go to slit 1, some go to slit 2, there we should get a combination that will look like this. But again, that's not what we got. We got an interference pattern. So from that, we can say that that's not what happened. And so now Feynman's like, Mahesh, what else is there? Well, I'm like, all right, Feynman, what if each electron is somehow going through both the slit? Huh? Isn't that the answer? And Feynman is like, well, let's test it. If a single electron is going through both the slit, then if I were to bring the screen all the way close to both the slits, then every single electron should give me 2 dots.
That is a good experiment. I don't think anyone has ever conducted this experiment. It's a very good experiment. So according to me, you would get exactly 50% left and 50% right. But this is just the collapse. It's just the collapse of the wave.
Right? Right? And I'm trying to bring the screen all the way close to both the slits, then every single electron should give me 2 dots. Right? Right? And I'm like, no.
No, that would be, see, he's not thinking about conservation laws. That would be a violation of conservation, of mass, energy, momentum, the whole list. Right? Because then you could have, why not have many slits here? Why should it be exactly once on the left and once on the right? It should be on every, it should show up on every slit. That doesn't make any sense. So of course it's that can never happen, right?
Dots. Right? Both the slit. Then if I were to bring the screen all the way close to both the slits, then every single electron should give me 2 dots. Right? Right? And I'm like, no. I don't mean the individual actual electron. The probability wave is
probability wave. Yeah, the probability wave, not the wave. Notice, not the wave, the probability wave.
what is going through. And Feynman is like, Mahesh, what did I tell you? Do not use your preconceived notions.
What do you mean do not use your preconceived? But what do you? I don't understand this discussion. Like what? Like it's like Feynman doesn't want to hear his answer. It's a wave going through both and needing to collapse at one place to not violate conservation. So it shows up as one electron somewhere. That's the answer. I mean, he's not, Mahesh is not allowed to give the right answer, or almost the right answer.
And I'm like, no. I don't mean the individual actual electron. The probability wave is what is going through. And Feynman is like, Mahesh, what did I tell you?
Mahesh is not even allowed to complete the sentence. Very unfortunate. Unfortunate for Mahesh.
Do not use your preconceived notion.
I mean, why do you do what Feynman says? You should tell Feynman, no, now you listen to me. Here is the explanation.
think about this rigorously. You said that each electron is going through both the slit. What is the meaning of that?
It was never an electron. It was always a wave, always will be a wave, except for when it's during interactions. Then it cannot be, because of conservation, it can only be an electron instantaneously during the interaction. But immediately after, it must go back to being a wave.
If each electron is going through both the slit, then I should get two dots right behind the slits, right? And I'm like, yeah, right. But does that happen?
No, that can never happen, because then the universe would blow up. It would be just an unstable universe. If one electron became two, that's not our universe.
It doesn't. You will always find, if you keep the screen right next up to the slit, you will always find only one dot.
Have you ever conducted this experiment? Why don't you conduct this experiment? Why would you say would? Why not say, okay, we conducted this experiment and we found that's the answer. I predict, yes, it will always be 50% one, 50% two.
Which means this option is also wrong.
No, that's the correct answer.
Each electron does not go through both the slits.
Yes, it does.
Okay. What if the electrons are going through neither of the slits? Huh? That's possible, right? And
Some of them, I'm sure. That's a good question. So no, because it's a wave. See that I fell into the trap. It's a wave. So as a wave, you could argue sometimes it should, right? It should impact. It should be detected here on the plate where the two slits are. But here we don't have a detector, so it cannot show up here, because I don't know what's different about this than the detector. The detector might be, I don't know. They never discussed this. I don't know what the setup is. I don't know. It's a good question. Why doesn't the electron ever impact on the surface here? But the answer is, it's a wave. It goes through, becomes two waves, and can only interact here. So I guess it cannot interact here. There is no way for it to interact on this thing, I'm assuming.
Feynman is like, Mahesh, now we are thinking rigorously. But again, how do we test it? Well, if electrons are going to neither of the slits, let's redo the experiment. This time we'll close both the slits and see what we'll get. This is what it means for electrons to go through neither of the slits, right? But if you close both the holes, then you would get nothing on the screen. So clearly, that's not what we got. We did get something on the screens. That means even this option is wrong. What else? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm running out of options over here. But wait, we're not going to give up. Maybe electrons are doing something way more complicated. What if the electron is, say, going through slit 1 and then coming back to slit 2 and then again going like this? And Feynman says again.
Well, that would be right. We have conservation. I guess conservation of momentum. You fire the electron in a certain direction, so an electron must conserve its momentum. It cannot just turn around and do that circle. I don't see how it can do that circle. So I would say that's impossible. That if it doesn't have a mechanical explanation, then it's not scientific. Then that never happens. Let me check my battery. Okay. Plug this battery in. I honestly I'm thinking in the back of my head, what if Mahesh one day will see this video? I'm wondering how my video. I'm wondering how he will react, because I think I am explaining it better. What do you mean? I think I'm convinced I'm explaining it better than he is, and better than he is explaining Feynman. I don't know how Feynman actually understood it. But my intuition is that Einstein understood it. That's what Einstein. When I speak about it, I end up speaking exactly as Einstein spoke about it. And everyone made fun of him, and everyone still makes fun of him. But that's the simplest, most mechanical explanation. Einstein didn't like it because the only explanation is bizarre. That the universe, God, has to cast a die for literally every collapse of the wave. For every collapse, God has to cast a die and decide where will. But it's not a die. Is it a die? Because it has to remember. It can't be. The probability, well, it has to follow the Schrödinger's probability. So every electron that we fire, it has what we call uniform probability. It does not depend on what the previous electrons did. So each electron that we fire is independent. Anyway, it's not very mechanical. I don't know how it would work, but it's the only explanation I have for what's going on. The way Mahesh is explaining is not mechanical. I don't know what he's saying. The way everyone else explains it, they usually just don't explain it. They usually say nonsense like the collapse of a probability wave. I don't know. I don't know what that means.
Again, you can test for it. If an electron is going through slit 1 and then coming back to slit 2, then if I keep a barrier over here, I should be able to detect it. But that never happens. If
Okay, did you test it?
I keep a barrier, I will never ever detect.
Did you test it? I mean, can you reference a test that you did? You're saying would. How do you know?
Electron being detected over here, which means that's also wrong.
What do you mean it's also wrong? You never tested. Not. I mean, the intuition is it should not happen, but quantum mechanics is sometimes unintuitive.
Complicated path that you can think of, that's also wrong. And I'm like, we've exhausted all the logical options that we can think of. I mean, there is no other possibility, right? And yet electrons are somehow going through both the slits in a way that's not any of this. But it's inconceivable. It's almost as inconceivable as, I don't know, having, say, a single tool that can help anyone build a website building tool. That, yes, just click on a domain will necessary if to build my website portfolio. I want it to be unique. I have a pictures change. And guess what? It turned out. Okay, analytics section over here. I want to check went live. Yeah, it's doing. Squee happy with that. Says turned out. Okay.
Wait, who is he?
My website, Floated Physics, went live. Yep, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out.
Let's see, my name is Mahesh Shinoy. I am the creator of Floathead Physics, and I am on mission to help folks deepen their intuition about the universe around us. I have been teaching and creating physics videos for about 14 years now. And yes, I am also the Khan Academy India guy. Want to get in touch? You can reach me at Vag.Mahesh. Why Vag? What is Vag? At gmail.com. Okay. I've seen his videos on Khan Academy. They're very good. He's a good explainer. In general, he's a good explainer when he understands the stuff. But sometimes, okay, sometimes he's not the best. And those times, maybe he is still the best, but still getting things wrong.
Okay, now that it's live, I want to check how floatedphysics.com is doing. Squarespace says, look, there's this analytics task. It also, I think it's pretty cool. It has it all. .com/using a website, then do what is the answer to this? It's also in the description. Now back to the video. So Feynman, what?
Wait, he's also laughing. He's also smiling when he talks about that. So maybe his smiling has nothing to do with the cult.
Check them out. The link is also in the description. Now back to the video.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe he's just a very, very happy person. I don't know. Maybe his wife is gorgeous, so maybe that's why.
So Feynman, what is the answer to this question? Which slit did the electrons really go through? I mean, we've looked at all the possible options that we can logically think of, and all of them are wrong. So what do we do? And Feynman says, well, Mahesh, apparently this means electrons are going through both these slits in a way that we can't even logically conceptualize.
Okay, that's nonsense. That's literally nonsense. What do you mean you cannot logically conceptualize? Why is that? I mean, we're very close to the answer. Why are you suddenly saying the answer is completely wrong?
It means that we can't use our words or vocabulary or pictures to communicate.
Why not? It's very straightforward. It basically, we're almost there. Why are you completely rejecting, diminishing, dejecting everything completely thoroughly? We're almost there. We understand it. It looks like it becomes a wave, and then it becomes a particle. Yeah. How does it become a particle after it became a wave? Exactly one particle? Yeah, that's a mystery, but it's a relatively small mystery. I don't see the point of saying, oh, it's complete. We cannot. What kind of it's like very low self-esteem. It's almost talking like a depressed person. It's like we're hopeless. Why are you speaking this way?
What they're doing. What they're doing is a completely new behavior, and
no, it's very straightforward. We just don't know how the collapse. We don't know the mechanism of the collapse. That's all. It's very straightforward. Everything else is very straightforward.
That's why we come up with a new name for it. We call it the quantum superposition.
That's nonsense. That's nonsense. The superposition is nonsense. It's just a wave. It's just a wave. It always was a wave, always will be a wave, except for when it collapses from a wave to a detected particle. How does it know to do that without violating the laws of conservation? That's the only question. It's really a very, very small question, relatively. It's relatively a very small question. There's no reason to come up with new names for the wave. The wave is a wave. It's a wave of ether. Really not complicated.
We say that the electrons are in a quantum superposition of going through slit 1 and going through slit.
That's nonsensical. It's just a wave going through both, becoming two waves, interfering with each other, and then being detected as a particle somewhere. It collapses. Very simple, very straightforward. We can write a computer simulation that predicts this behavior with 100% accuracy. So I don't see the issue.
Two. But I'm like, what does that mean? Okay. And Feynman says, I cannot tell you what that means using any words that we use to communicate or.
I don't see the problem. I've explained it to you many times. It's really very straightforward.
Any pictures, if I try to do that, I will only cause miscommunications. So the best I can do, Mahesh, is I can tell you what quantum superposition is not.
That is nonsensical. I mean, you can explain to me what you mean by superposition. You can try and explain. What do you mean explain what it's not? Like, I'm going to explain to you what a chair is. I don't know how to explain what a chair is. I'll explain to you what a chair is not. It's not an apple. Okay, that's good. It's one step forward.
It's none of the above. It's its own new thing that can.
If it's its own new thing, then yeah, you can explain it for what it is. You don't have to explain what it's not. It's its own new thing. All right, whatever you want.
Not be explained using any prior knowledge.
Okay. Wait, did he already explain it though in his own new thing? Oh, he didn't. He just called it a new name, quantum superposition. Okay.
That we have. At first, this is deeply frustrating, right? But if you think a little bit more about it, it actually is quite satisfying because Feynman is actually showing us.
It's not satisfying to be told a new term that is not being explained after you went through every possibility, and you're being told it's just a new thing that we call superposition. It's not. It's really not. It's really very straightforward, except for the very end where it collapses without violating conservation. It does seem to violate Einstein's relativity, which we can discuss. I mean, it violates the speed of light, but it would also need to be intelligent. According to Einstein, not even Einstein, in order for this to work, it has to be a computer program. We would have to be living inside a computer program. That's because this computer program needs to do the calculation, and that means our reality is fake. That would be maybe the simplest explanation, but I don't like that explanation. But it could be that is the explanation. It might just well be that this is evidence for a simulation. If there is ever evidence for a simulation, that's evidence for a simulation. That looks bizarre. But that's I think that's how the ancients felt every time they couldn't explain a phenomenon. They said, "Oh, that's God." How life began? Oh, that's God. How intelligence emerged? Oh, that's God. How societies don't collapse? Oh, that's God. It's like everything we don't understand is God. And then the next day we come up with a mechanical explanation. We no longer need God until the next gap. So it's called the God of the gap. So every time there's a gap. So right now we have this gap. So we say, oh, it must be God. Okay, I mean, it sounds like the intuition is it's again God of the gap, God of the gaps.
Why it is impossible to use our language, our words.
What do you mean it's impossible? Because you're not able? Because you don't understand it? That doesn't mean it's impossible for you. What do you mean our language? It's your language. You're having a hard time explaining. Okay, that's just you.
Words or pictures to explain what quantum superposition is.
But you explained it very well. I don't understand. You just misused the term probability wave instead of just a wave. I don't know why you did that, but that's you. That's you belong to a cult.
If you try to do that, you're going to cause misconceptions, and that's why it's even wrong to say quantum superposition is kind of like the electrons are going through both the slits. No, wrong. Don't use any word.
Words. It's just superposition. But even the word superposition, it sounds like you're superimposing two things on top of each other. It still sounds like it's one wave becoming two waves interacting. That is what it sounds like. Superposition does sound like superimposing, placing two waves, and it sounds like an interference pattern. Superposition sounds like interference.
Words. You can only explain what quantum superposition is not.
That's ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. I can only explain to you what a chair is not. Why? What's stopping me from explaining to you what a chair is? I can explain what it is and what it's not. But why only say what it's not? I don't understand.
You cannot use words or pictures or animations to describe what it is. It is a brand new thing. It's its own thing.
If it's a brand new thing, then fine, you can explain it. There's no problem explaining a brand new thing. There's always brand new things. Facebook one day was a brand new thing. I remember I only heard of Facebook. I didn't know what it's about. I was thinking, oh, it's probably this thing that tells you when friends are nearby. That's what I thought Facebook was. It's like it helps you find friends who are nearby. That's what they told us. Oh my God, I have a phone call. 1 second, 1 second. Call back. All right.
Thing, and you cannot use any prior knowledge to explain what it
How does that work? Everything you think about needs everything is based on prior knowledge. So what do you mean no prior knowledge? No prior knowledge allowed. What? How? How?
is. And that is truly profound. That is
That's not profound. That's nonsense. You're not answering any of my questions. You're saying bizarre things.
beautiful.
No, it's not beautiful. There's nothing beautiful about it. You're in a cult. You have to leave this cult.
But what's even more beautiful is that you can use math to describe exactly what quantum
There's nothing beautiful about using math. And where is the math? What do you? Oh, you mean the collapse of the wave? Sure. I mean, but you. I mean, what do you mean math? I mean, you. I need to know what what the data is. Based on the data, I can write a computer program that simulates it. Right? Basically, you all that it seems like. Right. I just need to know the probability, right? Basically the intensity of these lines, of the interference pattern. So I need to be able to roll a dice, and for this to be for somewhere here to this should be maximum to drop off up and down, and for here in the middle to be 0, and here it should be, I don't know, 50. This streak should be 50% relative to this one. There should be a drop off left and right, a drop off up and down. All I need is to write a computer program that predicts with hindsight the data. Show me the data. Show me accurate data. Let me check that everything is fine. Show me accurate data, and I'll write the software that simulates the data. It's, oh my god, I hate it when I turn off my iPhone. It takes a snapshot, and then there's all these random snapshots in my iPhone. So where were we? So about the math, I mean, there's nothing special about the math. The math is just the data. You just want to be able to reproduce the data. You can write a software program to do that. You can tell me, you can write a story, you can show me a picture, you can write an equation. Okay, these are all nice ways. Maybe with the equation, you can generalize it more than software so that you can, I understand that you can predict like a hydrogen electron cloud in all its states. I mean, that is nice. That is beautiful. That is beautiful if you're able. And I've seen pictures of actual electron clouds and how they were predicted by Schrödinger. So that is amazing.
But what's even more beautiful is that you can use math to describe exactly what quantum superposition is, and you can
Oh my god. You can use math to describe exactly. Okay, so that's an explanation. That's not saying what it's not. That's saying exactly what it is. If you're saying that the Schrödinger equation is exactly superposition, then all it is just telling the story that I'm telling. An electron, when it's moving, is a wave. It goes through two slits. Therefore, they interfere with each. It becomes two waves. They interfere with each other. And then but then when it collapses, when it is detected, can only be detected because the conservation is one electron. So it has to choose where to show up. And that's when you use probability, the Schrödinger equation. Okay. It's fine. I mean, and that's superposition. You can call it anything you want. I actually call it entanglement. As far as I'm concerned, that's exactly entanglement. But you can call it anything you want. It's the collapse of the wave using probability. It's a probabilistic collapse of a wave.
communicated mathematically, and that's why math is the language of quantum mechanics.
Math is the language of quantum mechanics? No. I mean, math is just a subset of English or any other language. It's just a language. It's just a human construct. So you might as well say English, and that's why English is the language of quantum mechanics. No. But you cannot use, there is no math without English. There is no math without a language. Math is just a subset of other human languages. It's just a human language. So there's the language of quantum mechanics is language. Yes. Yes. By definition, yes.
So, Feynman, are you saying that it's wrong to think of electrons as a probability wave that passes through both the...
Why do you say probability wave? Or as you pronounce it, probability wave. Why do you say that? It's just a wave. I don't see why you need to mention probability when it's not collapsing. As long as it's behaving like a wave, it's just a wave. When it collapses, when it's detected, it cannot violate conservation. Then it collapses to a single detection.
the slits and then interfere with each other and they collapse, right? Well, Feynman says
What's wrong with that explanation? It's a good explanation.
it's not wrong to say that, but you need
It's not wrong? Wait, what?
to understand that is an interpretation of
Like everything else. What is not an interpretation? But didn't you say that we were wrong? It's like something new. It's quantum superposition. It's a completely new thing. I mean, I'm not following you at this point.
what the underlying math is telling us. This is called the Copenhagen interpretation, is the most famous one. There are other interpretations, first of all.
All right. I think it's a very straightforward interpretation.
But more importantly, science never tells us which interpretation is right.
Except for talking about probability waves. I don't see why you do that. That's weird.
Okay, and that's important. This is just the way we interpret the results, the math over here. That's important. Okay, it's not what the experiments are telling us that that's a fact. But more importantly, when we say, for example, probability wave, what do we really mean?
Yeah, I don't know what you mean. It's just a wave.
I mean, when you think about a wave, what comes to your mind is that something is going up and down, and then
Well, not necessarily up and down. I don't know how exactly the wave of the electron is waving. That's a good question. I don't know. It could be a density wave. Density wave, my intuition is density waves are gravitational waves. But it could it be a gravitational wave? I would say it's I don't know. It's a different kind of a wave, but it might be density. Might be, I don't know.
then energy is being transferred. But over
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. There's nothing magical about that.
here, none of that is happening. So it's not a wave.
What do you mean none of that is happening? Obviously, that is happening. I mean, everything we see, that is what is happening.
In any traditional sense, it's just called as a wave because the mathematical equation.
That's not the reason. I don't know what this equation means. I don't need this equation to tell you that it's a wave going through. I actually think it's a wave going through. Because of my interpretation of general relativity, that it's the flow of the ether. That is what creates gravity. And from that, I deduced that you cannot have particles. Everything must be waving through the ether. So everything must be a wave. And that fits with the data that, quantum field theory says everything is a wave. All right, so everything is a wave. I don't need this equation. I don't know what this equation says. And I heard Science Asylum said it's not even a wave equation. A wave equation, it's the second derivative. I think it's the second derivative over time, and the function equals 0 something, right? Second derivative, I think over time. The acceleration, this is not acceleration. This is acceleration This is not definition of acceleration. This is over distance. This is the curvature over distance. I don't know what that is. And this is the change, the first derivative over time. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what this equation says. As far as I know, it's supposed to just predict the probability, give us the probability. Like psi is the probability of detecting the electron at x at t, at this location at this time. That is psi. Psi. This is, so I don't know what to tell you. But I don't know what this equation means, so I don't see. The equation is derived from data. This just expresses data. This just predicts data that we collected.
That describes it is very similar to the wave equation.
No. So this is the wave equation? The wave equation is the second derivative and the second derivative? I didn't know that. Well, anyway, this is the second derivative, this is the first derivative. I don't know. Anyway, it's not a wave equation. What do you mean free? With all variables free, like time and space, time and dimensions?
And so there are all these caveats and disclaimers that come when we're using those words, and we need to be very careful about it. And that's what Feynman is saying. When you're trying to use those words, you need to be very careful. Otherwise, we might just fool ourselves. Okay, so
yeah, I think you're fooling yourselves. I think Feynman fooled himself in this case. I don't know about the other cases.
The final question we could be having then is, why doesn't quantum superposition happen at a macroscopic level? If it did, then we would all have intuition for it, right? Why does it only happen at the microscopic level?
Well, that's a good question, but I mean, the microscopic level, everything is a wave. But when things interact with each other, they view each other, they interact as particles. Any single interaction, they detect, all the particles detect each other as particles, not as waves. When they're not interacting, they're waves. When they are interacting, they look like particles. So by the time it reaches our scale, everything is a particle, I guess.
Feynman says that's a great question. For that, we can go back to our experiment.
I mean, our universe is visible. Everything we know because it's visible, because we interact with it. So when it's visible, it must collapse. That is basically what visible means.
Right. See, over here, people were really annoyed with the fact that none of these is like, electrons are not doing any of these things, right? They're doing something completely different. So they really
No, it's just 4. Slit 1 and 2. It's really very straightforward.
he wanted to find out if they could somehow detect what the electrons are really doing. And so for that, they decided to use a detector. See, so far they were actually doing this experiment in complete darkness so that nothing was interacting with the electron, not even light. But now they thought, what if they use...
Right. As soon as the electron interacts with light, you're not going to get this result. The electron will behave more like a particle the more light you have in the room.
a tiny light source.
So it's very interesting that he just mentioned it, by the way, and this is a prediction of the way I view the universe. I never knew this, that they ran this experiment in the dark. Yeah, you have to run it in the dark. I think I told you this in all the videos that I made. I always made sure to say that it's in the dark. Interesting. That was my intuition. But now he says they always conducted it in the dark. Yeah, that makes sense, because if there's light, even if you don't see the electron is being bombarded by light. So every interaction like that collapses it. So it never really it never really runs or moves as a wave. It ends up moving as a particle.
They keep it between the two slits so that when electron passes close through a slit, the light can be scattered off and then if it reaches our eyes, we can see a flash. And by looking at that flash, we may be able to identify where the electrons are really going. So for example, if you conduct this
So they put a light between the two slits, and then they ran this experiment so that every time an electron flew by, they could see it.
experiment with that light source, and we see a flash going in front of this, let's say, slit 1, then I know electrons went to slit 1. If it goes in slit 2, then I know electrons are going to slit 2. So this way I can really detect what's going on. So people redid this experiment with that light source, and guess what they got? This time they actually found flashes in front of slit 1 and slit 2.
Prediction, exactly 50% in each one.
Which means that the electrons were indeed, some of them were going to slit 1 and some of them were going to
No. So it's a wave, but when you're interacting with it, it has to collapse. It has to decide where it is. And then it shows up either in 1 or 2, because otherwise that's a violation of conservation.
slit 2. So that was indeed what's happening. But when we look at the pattern now, we no longer get an interference pattern. We get the pattern that we would expect from particles. We get 2 patches behind the slits. So what does it all mean? And I'm like, I know, Feynman, what this means. This means when there is no observer, we do this in complete darkness, we get an interference pattern. But when we have an observer, that interference pattern is gone. That means the act of observing.
It's not observation, it's just interaction. You don't have to be there. It's not consciousness, obviously.
Changes reality. That means consciousness affects reality, right? And Feynman says, again, Mahesh, no, all of that is hocus pocus.
Well, at least he agrees that it doesn't make any sense. He might as well say that it could be whatever, quantum consciousness.
Focus. No, none of that happens. What's really happening, again, if you were to be rigorous and be scientific, what's really happening from this experiment, what we can conclude is that when there was no light source, the electrons were behaving, they were in a quantum superposition.
No, just a wave.
But because of the light source, the electrons started interacting with the light. When they interact with the light, now they are going through one of the slits. That means they're no longer.
No. No, they go through both slits. Let me just check a message. No, they're going through both, and each electron is a wave. It goes through both slits, but when it interacts with any detection like light, it collapses. Okay. Okay. Let's continue.
In quantum superposition. So started interacting with the light. When they interact with the light, now they are going through one of the slits. That means
No. When they interact with the light, then they need to decide that the wave needs to collapse back to a single particle in order to avoid violation of conservation. Then it is detected as one particle. But if you put the light, if the light is before the detector, before the slits, then then only one, then the electron will go through one of the slits. As long as there's light, if the light is before the slits, then then that's correct. The electron will go through only one of the slits.
they're no longer in quantum superposition.
Quantum superposition, that's so nonsensical.
So that means when you interact with these particles, with light or with anything else, the quantum superposition is lost. So this is not just true for electrons going through the slits.
I wouldn't say the quantum superposition. You can say whatever you want. It's just, it collapses in order to avoid violating conservation laws. That's all.
It's true for any quantum properties. For example, consider the spin. When you measure electron spin, you
How could he not mention laws of conservation laws?
might get it to be spin up or spin down. But if there are no measurements being done, if there are no interactions, then the experiment shows that the electron doesn't have an upspin, nor a downspin, nor both, nor neither. They would be in a quantum superposition of being up and down. And again,
I don't know. I don't know what you mean by that, but it might be that a wave doesn't have spin. That as a wave, it has no spin, and it only has spin when it interacts. I don't know. I mean, this is the Stern-Gerlach experiment, and I didn't think about that enough. But it's a whole different. We need to have a separate discussion about that.
that does not mean they're up and down at the same time, and I cannot show any visuals or any animations to explain what quantum superposition is. But when you measure it, you always.
I mean, my intuition is just it's a wave. I don't know how a wave can have spin, and I don't know. I didn't think enough to tell you if the magnets interact with the wave. Apparently they do, but this, I don't know if this interaction causes the collapse. The question is, I would put double slits in, I would combine double slits with the Stern-Gerlach experiment and see what happens then. The question is it a wave as it's interacting with the magnet? Is it still a wave, or is its waviness lost? Is it already considered to have been interacted with? I don't know.
Find it to be spin up or spin down with a 50% chance. And this is what Erwin Schrödinger and Einstein didn't like, because this meant that nature is no longer deterministic. I cannot, with 100% certainty, predict the outcome of what the measurement will give me. Quantum mechanics was saying that nature is inherently probabilistic, and they didn't like that. And to express that,
it's much more than nature being. It's much more. It's not just that it's being probabilistic. It's that this collapse of the wave. The only explanation is that either we're in a simulation. Oh my god! Check that everything is fine. Yeah, everything is fine. Everything is fine. So the explanation for this behavior is much weirder than just the universe is probabilistic. The universe seems to be a simulation, or there seems to be a God casting die for each collapse. I don't know. I don't have any other explanation. Certainly, there's a violation of the speed of light. So even that I believe in the ether, I believe that the maximum speed of information is the speed of light. But this seems to be much more than any speed. This seems to be instantaneous. So it's instantaneous communication that is intelligent. And basically every particle in the universe, every elementary particle in the universe now is intelligent. So I don't know what to say. It's too bizarre, even for me at this point. But the word probabilistic doesn't even express how bizarre this behavior is. Maybe we'll turn off. Let's turn it off.
They came up with the thought experiment, and now the thought experiment makes sense. When you close the box, you're
this thought experiment does not make any sense.
Basically saying, assume there are no interactions happening inside. Then what is the state?
What are you talking about? Why? What you can have a person inside. You can have an entire laboratory inside. You can have the entire universe inside this box. According to you, it's always the question will always remain. As far as you're concerned, the universe inside the box is in a superposition. So you can have interactions inside.
Of the atom. That atom is not decayed. It's also not decayed. It's in a quantum superposition of being decayed and not decayed. That does not mean it's both decayed and not decayed at the same time. Hope you understand that now, right? And therefore, what is the state of that cat? It's not dead. It's not alive. It's also not both. It's also not neither. Its state is a quantum superposition of being dead and alive. And it's only.
Why do you say that? I mean, it's either dead or alive. Why do you? It's either dead or alive. Where's the issue with that? I don't understand the issue. It's either dead or alive. What's the question?
Only when you open the box, the state changes. The quantum superposition.
Why would the state? How can the state change so rapidly? That doesn't make any sense. What?
Is gone. The state changes to being either dead or alive.
Why do you say that?
And so their argument was, does it make sense for that cat to be in quantum superposition? No, right? And therefore,
I don't know what you mean. I mean, I don't see how this is relevant to the double slit experiment. So, because something is 50-50, so it's both dead and alive, I don't understand. Anyway, there was never an experiment conducted with the cat that you need to explain. So I don't even know, what are you trying to explain? It's just words. Like, what do we say about a cat that is either dead or alive? That's all we say. It's either dead or alive. Why do you need to say anything beyond that? And quantum superposition is nonsensical. And I don't see how this is relevant to our discussion. Where's the relevancy to our discussion? I mean, you could say that the particle of the decay, it either interacted or it did interact. Let's say it slit one or two. I don't know. I mean, I don't even know what the issue is with Schrödinger's cat.
Quantum superposition is not real. But today we know.
What do you mean by, I don't even know what you mean. I don't know.
No, it is real. With all the experiment, the double slit experiments, the experiment with the spin, we have a lot of experiments that show that the quantum superposition is indeed real.
Okay, Stern Gerlach I'm going to ignore. The double slit is very straightforward. I don't see the problem. Your superposition is nonsensical. Everything is well explained until the collapse. The collapse is bizarre. Okay, so what's your question? How's this relevant to the cat? It's bizarre enough. Look, concentrate on what we don't know and try to figure it out. We don't know how the collapse occurs instantaneously across the universe, violating every speed limit we know, violating black holes, cosmic horizon. I mean, it's as a violation of the known laws of physics as can be. So yeah, you don't need to talk about a cat. Why are you talking about a cat? I don't understand the discussion about the cat.
But of course, it doesn't apply to macroscopic objects like cats because there are a lot of interactions happening. Remember, it has nothing to do with conscious observers looking at it. It has something to do with interactions. Macroscopic objects have a lot of interactions, so it doesn't apply to macroscopic objects. But quantum.
Okay, that's irrelevant to the entire discussion.
Superposition is real as long as you don't measure something, as long as something is not interacting, their state is in a quantum superposition. So the final question we could be having for final.
It's just a wave. You don't have to say weird things. So there are no I'll repeat the way I see the universe. Everything in the universe, every elementary particle is a wave, just like quantum field theory says. Until you measure it, then it cannot violate conservation laws. Then it must be what it was last time you measured it, which was a single part. If it was a single particle, it has to still be a single particle. Otherwise, you're violating the laws of conservation. That's it. Nothing more complicated than that. Whatever is not complicated, let it go. It's not complicated. There are complications. That's not the complication. The complication is, how does it know? Not, how does it know to collapse to one place, not zero, not two, not how? How does it know that? That's the question. Nothing else. Everything else is very straightforward. It's a wave. What you call superposition is just a wave that becomes two waves. That's very straightforward. I think. I don't see the issue.
Simon, is since quantum superposition only acts at the microscopic level, and that too when there are no interactions happening, and we'll
Only at the microscopic level. Okay, for now, I guess, yeah.
live in a macroscopic world with so many interactions around, does that concept really have any significance? And Feynman says, think about this. Consider an electron that is going around a nucleus.
That's still microscopic.
Now imagine another nucleus comes close by. Then that electron has a choice of orbiting the nucleus 1, or it could be orbiting nucleus 2, or it has a choice to orbit both the nuclei, or it has a choice to not orbit any of the nuclei. What will that
Then where would it go?
electron do? None of the above. It will now be in a quantum superposition of orbiting the nucleus 1.
It was always a wave. Now it's going to be also a wave. It was a wave before, it's going to still remain a wave. Until you interact with it, then you'll detect a single particle according to Schrödinger's equation. That's all. But what's the question? If this wave if it can wave around two nuclei, then it's a wave around two nuclei. It's going to always be a wave.
1 and the nucleus 2. And by the way, when we say the word orbit, that's wrong. Electrons are not.
Exactly. Every time you treat a particle as a particle, that's where you're starting the misconception. There's no particles. As long as there's no interaction, they're waves.
Going around the nucleus. Even here we can think that electron is in a quantum superposition of different places that it can all be.
No, it's just a wave. It's just waving through the ether. Just a wave.
This is what we call an orbital, but again, that's a side note. Anyway,
It's just a wave. It's just a wave. It's just a wave in the ether.
over here with the two nuclei, what you can see is that this quantum superposition is what is keeping the two nuclei together, is creating a chemical bond, which we call the covalent bond. A covalent bond is a
Covalent bond? Okay. So that's how, okay. But you didn't, like, we know how a single atom works with the electron cloud, the electron waving around the nucleus. So this is similar. What's the question?
quantum superposition. It's not really that electrons are being shared.
You don't need superposition. It's just a wave. Just start saying waves instead of all the other words. If you just think about every particle just as a wave, just as quantum field theory says they are, I think you'll be a happier person. Paradoxically, because you are very happy.
Between the two nuclei. That's a word that we use to make things easier to communicate, but that's wrong. It's in a quantum superposition.
No, it's not. It's just a wave. Wait, what did you say was? Right. So every time you're thinking about it as not a wave, that's where your misconceptions begin.
Bond is a quantum superposition. It's not really that electrons are being shared between the two nuclei.
And the electron as a particle is not shared. An electron wave is shared. Some sort of a wave.
Yeah, that's a
I don't know exactly how it waves. I don't think, but maybe quantum field theory explains exactly how it waves.
word that we use to make things easier to communicate, but that's wrong. It's in a quantum superposition. Without
No, it's just a wave.
it, we wouldn't have covalent bonds, which means we wouldn't have water molecules. We wouldn't have molecules in your DNA, proteins. Life itself wouldn't exist without quantum superposition.
Everything is a wave. There's no quantum superposition. I don't even know what that is.
So if you think about it, Schrödinger originally came up with the thought experiment, along with Einstein actually, to tell us why they were unhappy with quantum mechanics. But it
No, I'm not. Look, I'm not unhappy with quantum mechanics. There's nothing you can do about it. I mean, Theoretically, we would have come up with quantum mechanics from a pure thought experiment. What do you expect? How do you expect the universe to behave? Give me the alternative universe that is in your mind that is not so paradoxical. I don't see how. This is still the simplest universe. I don't have a better universe to offer. At the end of the day, I think it's, I don't have look. I don't have an alternative universe, so I'm not unhappy with anything. I don't know what Schrodinger's cat comes to say. I don't see the issue. I don't understand Schrodinger's cat. I don't see the issue. I'm happy with quantum mechanics.
It turns out that the thought experiment is actually useful in explaining why you and I and this world exist.
You did not even explain it. You didn't even explain Schrodinger's cat. Like, what do you want to say? So there's a flip of a coin, yeah? So they flipped a coin, based on that they killed a cat. Yeah, and who cares? How is this relevant? Why is this making you perplexed?
Exist in the first place. If you like this video, you'll also probably like my previous video on how a simple accident, a lab accident, unlocked the whole quantum revolution. Do check that out over here. See you.
Okay, I'm done. I'm gonna go kill myself. All right, everyone. See you next time. Bye-bye.